Susan James, Library Manager here at Bayliss and Assistant Director of the Superior District Library. I want to thank Carl Behrend for speaking tonight, Friends of the Library for the refreshments, and just mention we have some flyers and newsletters. We have a bunch of events this month. It's a very busy month. Carl is a fourth generation Yooper who was born in Escanaba, grew up in Manistee, I just heard, and lives in Munising. He's well known for his music about the Great Lakes. He's also a sailor of the lakes. Tonight he'll speak about two great nations, one great lake, sailing solo around Superior, a photographic journey. And as you can see, there's some books and CDs there too. So please welcome Carl Behrend.
All right, well, it's good to see some old friends here tonight too. Some fans of mine and some people that I've met before, new faces. The big question is, well, how does a person decide to go sail around Lake Superior on a 16 or 18 foot catamaran sailboat? Well, I started out sailing in Lake Michigan and Indian Lake by Manistee, and then I got a Hobie Cat catamaran. And then I moved up to Munising, so I started sailing on Lake Superior. I'd sail to Grand Marais and back, and I thought, you know, if a person packed just right, I think you could sail all the way around Lake Superior. And so I actually did do that, probably was it about 12, 15 years ago. My daughter Naomi just graduated from high school, and we took the summer and we sailed around Lake Superior together. So that was my first circumnavigation of Lake Superior, and I wrote the book Adventure Bound, Father and Daughter Circumnavigate the Greatest Lake in the World. So I knew then that I wanted to do it again sometime, and of course my daughter grew up and moved away, and so I just decided that a couple summers ago, this is the summer I'm going to do it. And I had my 18-foot catamaran kind of set up the way I wanted to, and so I'm going to show you a little slideshow of my most recent trip around Lake Superior, and I'll tell you the story about it. So Susan's going to get our
Okay, I guess it's in there.
DVD player, so I just push play.
I believe so. That should do it.
I'm not a real high-tech kind of guy here, so we'll see what we can come up with. That's good, that's good. Let's just restart it.
Yeah.
Let's just restart it. That was a false start.
We can remind me now.
So yeah, I decided to sail around the second time, and this time I had an 18-foot catamaran sailboat. And I had learned a lot of things the first time that made my trip more comfortable. And I also had a little 3.5 horse motor on there. I don't think this thing even...
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
Oh, did it? Oh, I don't know why it's talking to us that way. Because it wasn't doing that before, was it?
Okay, electric motor.
I'm not a real high-tech guy, so if
Well,
you guys know
neither
how
am
to...
Just push.
Yeah.
If you were in Kentucky, you would have had a yacht.
It's saying why
Still a sailboat.
I hit one of these buttons, I thought I was hitting
Oh.
volumes.
Oh, okay.
This looks like a sandbar.
That's my path of how I was going there, see that? It was kind of a square rig sail there, see? You know?
Like it's-
Yeah.
I was advertising for yellow and white.
Yeah. Where's the yard on this? I don't see a yard.
Oh.
There we go.
Just keep pressing all the
Okay,
buttons.
all right, this is the real deal now.
Yeah.
It's loading here.
So, it starts out with me leaving Munising. Of course, that's my hometown. So we left started Munising, ended in Munising. And my first voyage, I had a red, white, and blue sail. So I thought, well, this time, the second time, I'm going to have a sail that looks like the Canadian
Oh,
flag.
I guess we
And,
have to press play.
all right. So here I am all geared up. You can see I just packed real light. I've got 2 dry bags, one on each side, and a little bit of other gear, so it kind of balances out. And roller furling sail, so I could depower a little bit when I get out there. You can see my sail looks like the Canadian flag, and then my jib sail was red, white, and blue, represent both Canada and U.S. That's my cell phone charger. There's my cooking pot. That's good, man. So I left from Munising, and I ended up, it got rough the first night, so I ended up spending an extra day on Grand Island. So then I sailed along the Pictured Rocks, and the next night I was on 12 Mile Beach. This is the Asabo Lighthouse, and I just happened to do the restoration on that one a couple years earlier, so that's me working on the lighthouse. So I went by the Asabo Lighthouse. Kind of a long ladder. So I was under full sail and past the lighthouse that I'd done the restoration on. And that's one of many lighthouses I've worked on, actually. See that little ladder in there? I couldn't quite reach the top there, so I put that ladder in the bucket and I could reach the top there. But it was OSHA-approved ladder, so right. Okay, this is going towards Grand Marais. I was traveling eastward, so I pulled in at Grand Marais and went and had a whitefish dinner at the Dune Saloon, and jumped back on the boat and continued on my way. So some tourists took my picture here. This is the famous restoration of the Grand Marais Harbor. So I spent the night camped out along the shore between Grand Marais and Chris Point Lighthouse. This is actually a sunrise there. Woke up early and I sailed towards Chris Point, stopped and toward the lighthouse, ran into some friends of mine that I knew there. This is from up in the lighthouse tower. And the nice thing about the catamaran is you can pull it out of the water. So if you have a bigger sailboat, you have to go to a harbor or you find some place to anchor out. But with this boat, you can pull out the water and camp at night. So it's kind of like 2 kayaks. You can pull it out of the water by yourself. So it's ultimate freedom. I don't have to worry about being in a harbor or some place where there's a lot of people and stuff. Now just make a little comparison there. It's a very small boat, as you can see. And of course the Edmund Fitzgerald was 600 and some feet long. And they went down, so it's kind of a challenge going around in this little boat, you know. And so these are some people who stopped by there. I'm camped at Whitefish Point.
Legend lives on from the Jibundu, the
Actually, I performed at the Edmund Fitzgerald Memorial Service 6 years in a row where I played my song. There's the Edmund Fitzgerald right there.
A load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That big ship and crew.
So it's actually about 15 miles from, there's the Point Iroquois Lighthouse. Here's some representatives from Point Iroquois Lighthouse. I did a restoration on that one also. So I sailed into Canada, and I forgot to stop at customs, but I had special dispensation. So my first stop was Mamans Harbor, and this is Ferroclad Fishery. When Naomi and I sailed around the lake, we stopped there and got some fish, so I thought I'll stop there and get some fish. And so I got some whitefish, and just when I came out there was a thunderstorm brewing, so I ended up cooking my fish on this little island right across from the fishery there. And I ended up spending an extra day waiting for the weather to clear. So I got a lot of pictures of this. And this song playing is about the Great Lakes commercial fishermen, so I could.
Like my dad and my brother Slim, I am a Great Lakes fisherman. Waves are rough, wind is cold.
So I got quite a few pictures of this. There's old Jim McDonald. His father started the fishery there.
To the harbor
Past that 20 Bay there.
know everything's gonna be alright.
I was here on this little island overlooking the fishery and spent an extra day there. So the next morning I took off, sailed along the Canadian coast. You can see it's totally different than the US side. It's everywhere. You could take a whole video of the whole thing and not have a boring spot. Beautiful big granite rock. Very wild country. Matter of fact, from the time I crossed into Canada to about halfway across the Canadian side, I only saw 2 boats, 2 motorboats, and one of them was somebody I knew. So here I am under full sail, heading westward. And this is when I approached Garden Plot. And it was so beautiful there, I started to take some pictures and my camera batteries went dead, so I pulled up here and I was going to switch my camera batteries. And I just happened to find this old gold mine right in front of me. And you can see it's blasted, it's all tailings there, and there was a shaft here, and it was blasted right into the face of this cliff. But just like I say, just out of the blue, I stopped there, and it wasn't on the tourist map, but just happened to stop there. This is all the Gargantua region. Very beautiful.
Music's playing in the wind. He laugh and sing with his old friends, but in the morning he's back on his boat again.
So I pulled up there, and actually I think I had to wait an extra day there too because it got kind of rough. So there you can see I'm camped out. Nice cuddly beach there. This is looking west along the shore, and
Breaking ice out of the bay.
totally awesome.
Broke a rudder just the other day. Breaking ice on their way back in.
There's a little cooker I got. It's just a little home thing. You've got some little heating tabs. You put some in there. A lot of times I just cook over an open fire. But I could see it when the weather cleared. I could see in the distance. I could see Keweenaw Island, and that's it right there. So I knew that's where I wanted to go the next day. I've always wanted to go there, and I've never had the good weather to go there. But I listened to the weather on the radio, and it said it was supposed to be good. So about 6 in the morning, I sailed out of Gargantua towards Mishpacotton Islands. And this one I got out there. This is the view island, overlooks Quebec Harbor on Keweenaw Island. So not a soul around. I walked up to the lighthouse, took a bunch of photos. Just totally beautiful place.
On the boat again.
That's Quebec Harbor.
Just can't wait to get on that boat again. Life I love is out sailing with my friends, and I can't wait to get on that boat again.
So you can see I had the reef in the mainsail. So I went back down to the boat, ate some lunch, took the reef out of the main and sailed off all the way around to Keweenaw Island. And I sailed right into the night. I sailed till 2 in the morning. Sailed all the way to Otterhead Lighthouse.
Going places where I've never been, seeing things that I may never see
So
again.
this is the west side of
Can't wait to get on that boat
Keweenaw
again.
Island. And that's one place I want to go where I can actually spend a little bit of time. It's very mountainous. There's caribou on the island. It's very like I say, I sailed right into the night.
On that boat again.
And I could see the light from the Otterhead Lighthouse. I knew how to get in there at night, so I sailed till 2 in the morning. Spent the night at Otterhead Lighthouse. Not a soul around. Not a soul around.
We're the best of friends. System that the world
It's a fog signal building. Otterhead Lighthouse. It's looking west. It's a helicopter pad there. The lighthouse. So then I sailed west again, and this was Simon's Harbor, and I just pulled in there. It's beautiful, beautiful, deep harbor, surrounded by mountains. Not a soul around. I climbed up on the mountain and got this panoramic shot. Took a little nap on the boat, and then I sailed on to, I got it as far as Willow River on the Keweenaw. And then I listened on my radio said that there were strong wind warnings from their superior. So I pulled up the Willow River, and we had to wait out the storm for a few days. And that's when the Coast Guard was looking for me. My wife was worried because she hadn't heard from me for about 7 days, and
That's not the only person that was worried.
I didn't realize that I didn't have Canadian roaming on my cell phone like I always had before, so I couldn't call. I thought I'd call her when I went by Wawa, but I couldn't. So anyways, the Coast Guard was looking for me, and there was some kayak outfitters that had a satellite phone, and I used their satellite phone and called home and said, "Everything's A-okay?" And she said, well, I called the Coast Guard. I said, well, you call them back. So this is where I'm camped here at the Willow River. So I got a lot of pictures of that because I was just kind of hanging around waiting for the waves to settle down. I got some beautiful shots here. These are bridges on the Keweenaw Peninsula there. Those are 4 hikers.
They sailed upon her waterways, they walked her forest tall. They built the mines, the mills, the factories, for the good of us all.
And you can see looking westward there. This is a boom log I found along the shore. They used to have these big booms of logs, and they'd go across from Canada to Munising, and they'd bring these logs to the paper mill, and those were, the boom logs held the boom of logs together. I just happened to see see that one laying on the shore. You can see the white caps along the shore there. So I was waiting for the weather to calm down. And I saw that Coast Guard helicopter go by, and I kind of thought, I'm in trouble now. And you can see the waves there, they're pretty big. This is, there's a sea monster called Mr. Pichu, and that was his tail making that wave there.
From the eastern shore to the western strand, bringing the workers and bring up the rails. They gotta lay on the tracks, tear up the trails. Open your heart, let the lifeblood flow. Gotta get on our way,
Well, this was Larry King and
get on our way,
this young couple here. They when I got to Marathon, they brought me around, and I was able to get a few supplies and try and get my cell phone working in Canada, which you never did. So then from there I went to the Slate Islands, and just as I was approaching the Slate Islands, I saw somebody leaving. Well, that was the other boat that was somebody I knew. It was Rod Bryson, and he takes care of the lighthouse keepers' quarters there. So he wasn't there, so I went in and I just opened up through the dogs. Had a little door on there, so I reached in there and unlocked the door and stayed at the lighthouse. I left him a note though, you know. So that's the keeper's quarters at the Slate Islands. I spent the night there. And I sailed towards, that's Battle Island off of Rossport. So looking behind you, you can see the Slate Islands behind me there. So you can see the stretches of open water that I crossed. So this is coming into Rossport, Ontario. And a nice little town. And some friends of mine have a hotel there. And it's the oldest, Rossport Inn, and it's the oldest hotel on the North Shore Lake Superior. It was built by the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And so this is the front parking lot. And just as I was there, this gal here and her son, that gal's father owned the hotel in 1910, so she had some stories to tell. And they just happened to be visiting there when I was there. There's a little railroad museum there, and this gal was like a curator there. So we had a little photo shoot.
And our tour,
so that's your transcontinental railroad follows the Shore Lake Superior. This is a tugboat, Joe's tugboat here. It's true, his name was Joe. And while I was in Rossport, I ran into a friend of mine, Justin McCoy. He was playing at the Serendipity restaurant. So leaving Rossport, I headed through, the weather was pretty wild out on the lake, so I went through the Nipigon Bay, up through the Nipigon Strait. And you can see these plateau type rocks there are very characteristic of the Thunder Bay area. From like Red Rock all the way to Thunder Bay. This is Red Rock, Ontario. And they were having a big music concert there, so there was a lot of boat people coming in boats through the Nipigon Strait. So just past the Nipigon Strait is the Lamb Island Lighthouse. So I had to stop and investigate that because I'm kind of a lighthouse guy, you know. So I pulled up there, and just as I pulled up, two other boats. Now see, this is past the first two that I've met. So these two boats pulled up behind me, and the one group in the boat was kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies of yachting. I'll show you their boat here in a second. This is from my inside the keeper's quarters. Not a soul around except for there's the Beverly Hillbillies boat right there. Maybe I'm a dreamer. And the Canadian Canadian government, if their lighthouse is looking dilapidated, they tear it down and they put up a metal tower. So I climbed up the tower and got a couple pictures here. There's an effort to save the old lighthouses. And the Beverly Hillbillies had to come back the next morning because when they took off, their dinghy bumped up against their boat and one of their fishing poles fell over. So I had to go snorkeling to find their fishing pole.
That's great.
Heading west, there's the Sleeping Giant.
Desert storms, explosions in the night, suicide bombs.
You know, on that whole Canadian shore, there's only a handful of cabins. The whole nation. That's all wild country. This is one of the cabins on one of those islands.
The wind blows free and the water meets the shore. Maybe I'm a dreamer.
This is coming into Silver Island. This was a little mining town, and the richest silver strike in North America was built on a 7-acre rock out on Lake Superior. And so I pulled in there, and they don't have any electricity in the town or anything, but I was able to bum a little bit of gas from the guy at the store and go on. So as I left, I saw this island not too far in the distance, and there was a lighthouse, so I had to check that out. This is Trowbridge Island. And so it was getting late in the evenings, but I pulled up there and I thought, well, I got time to get some pictures. Well, just as I pulled up, this young kid come down there and helped me tie up the boat. Well, he was just a kid, so he wound that rope all around like this. And I thought, well, he's just a kid, no big deal. Well, it gave me a little problem later on, I'll tell you. But his name was Ben, he was 11 years old. So he took me up to the lighthouse. He said, you want to see the lighthouse? Took me all the places on the island that only a little kid would know, you know. And we had a great time. This is the Fresnel lens there in Trowbridge Island lighthouse. So the only ones on the island were Ben and his mother, Diane. And so Diane, nice looking gal, invites me for dinner. I said, I got to check my dinner appointments. You know. I probably got a lot of appointments, but I was able to fit it in my schedule, you know. And so Diane was a lighthouse activist, and she had moved into the vacant keeper's quarters on Trowbridge Island, and she was making an effort to save the lighthouses. So I said, well, I restore lighthouses, so I said, we got things in common. So she invited me for dinner, and I had my little backpacker's guitar, and we sat up singing songs all night. I had a really good time. There's a family of otters that was swimming by as I was docking my boat. And as I was just getting ready for dinner, I said, I better go check on my boat. I go down there and it's pounding like this, you know. So I run down there and I jumped on the boat. There's Diane. So I jumped on the boat and threw the back line off. And then I looked at the one that Ben had tied around there. My boat's pounding. So I just grabbed my knife and cut the line. I went around to the back side of the island. There was one little place where I could pull my boat up on that whole island. And so I pulled up the boat there and went and had supper. And we had a great time. So that's Trowbridge Island. So as I was leaving Trowbridge, sailing westward, that is Angus Island was probably about 5-8 miles distance. And so I pulled up there, decided to take a few photos, fun photos.
And the Indians sang their song.
And then you can see they have a metal tower there again.
By the firelight.
The nice thing about the Canadian shores, I don't think you can take a bad picture.
So the story's told.
And you can see this beautiful, that's called the sea lion. That's on Angus Island. And they've got the Easter Island heads over there too, you know. But beautiful mountains, all these plateaus. Day after day, this is why I go around So on my previous trip, Naomi and I had found out about there's an island called Thompson Island that's at the mouth of the Thunder Bay. And there's an island where you can park your boats, and then there's a sauna there. Anybody can go use it they want. So I came pulling in the bay there, and some guy comes running off the end of the dock and dives off, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney. So, well, the sauna's hot. And so I pulled up right by the sauna. This is the sauna building here. And took a hot sauna, and I got invited by some of the other boaters for dinner, and I felt pretty good, all cleaned up, took a swim, and then I headed towards Grand Portage, Minnesota. So can we stop this now and take a little intermission? And, that way I can take some questions. So we're about halfway done with the trip. Halfway around the lake. So, anybody have any questions at all?
Yes. Did the rocks harm your boat? You're pulling up on the rocks all the time? Did you do something?
Yeah, well, it doesn't help it, but there ain't much I can do about it. So, you know, I resurface the bottom, you know, every year or two, you know. But yeah, it's just the way it is, you know.
How many days were you gone, Carl?
Not enough days. I was gone, it took about a month both times.
Wow.
About a month.
Where did you learn to restore lighthouses?
Where did I learned to restore lighthouses at the University of Adversity. I've done, well, this one here is Iroquois. That's just up the coast here a little ways. I showed you a Sable Lighthouse, Sichua. I just did Manastique Lighthouse year before that. This one I was on an island in Lake Huron for a month last summer, and that's before I started. This is as it's progressing.
You must be one of the few people who have that particular skill. There can't be that many people who do that.
Yeah, well, let's hope nobody else does it, and then I can get all the jobs. Any other questions? I thought maybe we could take a little break and stretch our legs a little bit, and then we'll go for the second half. We'll go the rest of the way around Lake Superior. I didn't want some of my friends look like they're falling asleep here. This is Bill and Betty Coleman. They've been fans of mine for...
Wayne and Betty Coleman.
Huh? Wayne and Betty Coleman. And they're from Saginaw,
Yeah.
sort of. And you guys came to we played at the Tall Ships in Bay City.
Yeah, the first tall ship was in Bay City.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year that was.
So yeah, it was
We've traipsed around.
it was a long time ago, yeah. But you know,
Yeah,
everybody
so
else is getting
north.
older but us. You know? So yeah, I went to one of my graduation class reunions last summer, and all my friends are retiring. And I said, "Craig, you guys are retiring. I haven't got a job yet." I said, "But I know what I want to be when I grow up. A millionaire movie star."
There you go.
So
Keep working on
yeah,
it.
stop. Let's have a little break here, and we'll play the second half of our show. They just looked at my ID in my boat, and they said, "Okay." I said, "What? You're not going to strip search me?" But so I was able to come back into the U.S. even with the Canadian flag on my sail.
Yeah.
So this was heading west, reached Grand Marais, Minnesota, and it was a pretty nice visit. It was kind of like when Jesus come into town, though. no room in the inn. So I ended up sleeping on the boat that night anyways. I thought I was gonna get a cushy hotel or something, but no room at the inn. So I ended up sleeping on the boat on the beach there, which was really nice night anyways, so I really didn't mind.
What was the mosquitoes up here?
Mosquitoes? I have no mosquitoes up here.
I said that up there.
No, really, they weren't, but when you're around the lake shore, usually they're not too bad if you're,
Whitefish.
yeah, if you're right out on the exposed areas, it's not too bad. The wind keeps them out.
Oh.
So this is, Lutzen Resort is probably like 25, 30 miles from Grand Marais. So I thought, well, I didn't stay in a hotel in Grand Marais, and I was kind of expecting it. So I stayed at the Lutzen Resort. Next morning, I headed west again. And now that we're in Minnesota, you'll see there's a big difference in all these cabins, and there's a lot more people and a lot more activity.
Those who go down to the sea.
Like this is Keweenaw Harbor. There's 3 of these on the North Shore, 3 places where these big ships can load tack.
Where the tall ships reach up to the stars, where the mastops reach the sky, where they see the hand of God out there in the storm. Where they see the
So I passed Keweenaw Harbor, and then I thought I was going to get some nice photos of Split Rock Lighthouse. I wanted to get some with my boat in the front, you know. Well, then this fog came in, and some wind and fog, and I had to steer for the open sea, so I ran into some rocks. So I never did get to stop at Split Rock. But you can see these cabins. You know, I mean, beautiful places. Yeah.
So the cabins are the actual homes?
Or are they castles? I think they're castles.
Yeah.
No, I think that people say that all the time.
I don't know. It looks like they got more money than even when I'm a millionaire movie star, so I don't know. So I got right about to this point here, and all of a sudden a thick fog came in, so I had to pull out my GPS, and I mean, just about the time I got to, went past Split Rock, these people we were both pulling into Two Harbors, Minnesota at the same time. It got really rough, we both pulled in at the same time. These are the Gordons. These are the ones who invited me to their house.
Carl, Mo, sitting next to me, sailed this year with the Gordons around Lake Superior.
All right. Well, the Gordons read that book, Adventure Bound, and that was inspired them to take their trip to Bahamas. And so they invited me I was in Two Harbors, and they said, well, hey, we read your book. So this is Two Harbors. I'd wait another day there because it was kind of rough, so I waited till it calmed down again. And, so I got a lot of photos of Two Harbors and just sort of So leaving Two Harbors next morning, I sailed, instead of going all the way to Duluth and back, I cut across at Two Harbors, cut across the tip of the Lake Superior, and I pulled in at Port Wing, Wisconsin, and then sailed to the Apostle Islands.
About a giant porcupine was traveling north, and when it reached the shores of Lake Superior, it stopped.
These are some Boy Scouts who
then it lay down and fell asleep.
who had just come back from a kayak trip out on the Apostle Islands. And so they helped me pull my boat up in front of that casino there. I thought, I'm going to spend the night at this casino.
To this very day.
No room at the inn.
Traveling north to the Porcupine Mountains.
So I left this is over by Bayfield, Wisconsin. So I sailed towards the Porcupine Mountains. And this is That's Bayfield, Wisconsin.
hiking the trails.
Heading east, you can see the geology is a lot different on the U.S. side. A lot more sand. This is kind of a clay sand area. All between Bayfield, Wisconsin. And, this is Black River Harbor. So I made it to Black River Harbor that night. And there was a little campground store there, so I bought a hot meal, a little store-bought pizza. You know, they warmed it up for me. So I left next morning. I left Black River Harbor and sailed for the Porcupine Mountains. And you can see that's there's a ski hill. You can see those are all ski runs there. There's a legend that a giant porcupine fell asleep on the shore of Lake Superior, and that porcupine is still there. To this very day. So this song I'm playing is about the Porcupine Mountains, and that's on their state park video. So I pulled in at Ontonagon and pulled up the river. I sailed right up the river and pulled up at this little park, and the wind was blowing right up the river, so I left my sail right up, ran into town, had a hot meal at the restaurant, stopped and got a little bit of gas at the gas station at the Citgo, and my cousin was working at the gas station, so I said hi to my cousin and jumped back on the boat and headed for Houghton. And it got kind of rough actually. Between Ontonagon and Houghton was one of my wildest rides. So I don't have any pictures between there because I was hanging on. So I spent the night at my daughter lives in Houghton, so I was up the Houghton Canal. It's my daughter Sarah and my grandson Phineas. So I spent an extra day there just visiting and recuperating. And you can see the lift bridge is right there in the background. Houghton lift bridge. That's the Ranger heading for Isle Royal. I thought that made a nice little photo op. Fished in her river, hunted on her shore. Many a brave warrior. So this is Houghton Canal, and I headed south to South Portage Entry. You can see I went past Michigan Tech University. I had my little 3.5 horse motor running down the canal there. That's all I had for propulsion other than my sails was the 3.5 horse motor. Some pretty nice cabins along there too.
Yeah.
Guy's got a boathouse right on the shore there. There's a nice old farm there. Barn. There's a big dairy farm at one time. So this is coming out at South Portage Entry into Keweenaw Bay. And you can see there's some fish tubs there. And right across from where we're standing is the old Coast Guard and lighthouse keepers' quarters. Tried to go there and get a little photo op. Not a soul around. And this is South Portage Entry Lighthouse, so I had to do a little photo op there. My great-grandparents' homestead is on the shore of Keweenaw Bay. It's the oldest house still standing in Behrend County. My grandfather, just on the other side of the Keweenaw Bay, he was caretaker for Henry Ford's house on Keweenaw Bay, the Ford Bungalow. So when I was a kid, we would stay at the Ford Bungalow. My grandparents. So just around the corner from South Portage Entry Lighthouse is the Jacobsville Lighthouse. And if you've ever heard of Jacobsville, sandstone was used in a lot of building projects. This is where they quarried it right here. And I ran into this fellow, was the former owner of the Jacobsville Lighthouse. So he had a few stories to tell. On his property was this building here, was where they used to keep the gunpowder for the blasting in the quarry there. So I sailed over out into Keweenaw Bay. Here's one of the Indian fishermen there. Indian fishermen generally have the gill netting boats. You can tell that's a gill netter. I went near this, there was a small island called Traverse Island. I sailed by just to see what it looked like. Then I headed across Keweenaw Bay towards the Huron Islands. So you can see there's quite a stretch of open water there. Cormorants nesting on the Belbury there. This is getting closer to the Huron Islands. On the U.S. side, I think the Huron Islands is the most beautiful place. When Naomi and I sailed around Lake Superior, we loved the Huron Islands. So I knew I definitely wanted to visit there again. That's the old fog signal building. You can see the lighthouse is way up on the granite rock base. It's beautiful pink granite rock, much like the Canadian side of Lake Superior. And like I say, of all the places on the U.S. side, I think this is the most beautiful. You can see I pulled up, spent the night, I pulled up on the rock on the shore there. And you're not allowed to camp there. No camping and no campfires. So, but picnicking is allowed. So I didn't pitch a tent and I didn't build a campfire and I picnicked there the whole night. I spent the night there picnicking. And you can see the view there is just fantastic. You can hear the mountains in the background. This beautiful granite rock. Just every direction you look is really awesome. This is a rail system they used for supplying the lighthouse, pulling it up from the lake. You can imagine hauling your supplies up there. That's the old fog signal building.
Take me back home, yesterday. Take me back home.
So there you can see my camping spot, my picnicking spot.
Bet you can see some wonderful stars.
Oh gosh, it's awesome. So I climbed up to the lighthouse, did a little photo shooting. The Huron Island Lighthouse was very endangered, and a preservation group raised some funds to put a new roof on it. They pretty much saved, well, they definitely saved the lighthouse. That would have been totally ruined by now if they hadn't done that. But here's looking down from up on the lighthouse to my picnic spot there. The lighthouse was pretty much closed up, but I had a special dispensation to go in there.
Take me back home, yesterday.
There you can see the roof. They did a really nice job. And this is looking kind of south towards the Huron Mountains. And over to our right there is where there's a little harbor there and a boathouse that the lighthouse keepers use. Here's my picnicking spot. Huron Island. This is the path down to the boathouse. So the next morning I was going to sail on, but there was strong wind warnings, and you would be able to see how rough it got. This was on the windy side, so it got too choppy. I decided to stay on the island. I was on the protected side, but this was on the boathouse side. So just when I was going to take some pictures of the boathouse, here comes this Fish and Wildlife Service boat. You can see they're having a kind of a time of it. They were going to tie up at the dock, and they turned around and got the heck out of there. But look at that boat! That's a pretty big boat with those 150 horse motors. They were bouncing around pretty good, and they got the heck out of there. You can see right there, they just about got swamped. So you can imagine if I was out there on my little ship. So I happened to come up here to take some pictures, and that boat come trying to get in there, and they just turned around and went back.
gather me there with my
So you picnic for several days?
Yeah. So I walked around the island this way, and I came to that fjord. And there was no way I could get around it, so I had to take my clothes off and swim across. Went and got my dry bag, swam back across, put my clothes and my camera back in there, and swam back across.
That's great.
This is leaving there is that's the Huron Mountain Club there, and there was a lot of big name people, Ford, Cyrus McCormick, a lot of old money on the that's the main lodge at the Huron Mountain Club. And this is as you're approaching Big Bay. You'll notice again the change in geology. It's from granite back to sandstone now, and there'll be sandstone and sand the rest of the way of the trip. There you can see the layers of sandstone there as I'm leaving Big Bay. This is Big Bay Lighthouse. And this location was used as a anti-aircraft training facility during World War II. I had never seen Granite Island before, and when Naomi and I went around, we missed out, so I headed right for it this time. It was calm enough that I could land at the island. There was just one little spot where there's this crevasse, just wide enough for the boat to go in. And you can see I pulled up there, a nice little photo op on the island. It's privately owned, and some rich guy from Chicago has put a lot of money into it. He's doing a nice job fixing it. There you can see how narrow that is. My boat just barely scratching. He's got a derrick there for unloading stuff, but there's really the only harbor is where that little spot was on the boat. There's a fog bell here, as you can see up at the top there. Instead of a fog horn, this was back in the day, you know, they had a fog bell there. Very rare, actually. And you can see the fog bell in the background. And this is very similar to the Huron Island lighthouse. Matter of fact, they're just about identical. There's the remains of an old boathouse here. Very nice photo op here on this side. So yeah, sailing around Lake Superior, it's hard to take a bad picture. So this is leaving Granite Island, and if I stayed close to the shore, I could have stopped in Marquette or went by Marquette, but I just kind of shot across to Shot Point. Just about got run over by a freighter. He chickened out. And here you can see some more of the red sandstone. This is on Laughing Whitefish Point. There's some cattle. So then I pulled up at a friend of mine. I was getting close to home. I pulled up at Odd Train. Dave Kemar's fishing charters there. You can see he just came in with a boatload of fish. So if you want to catch some fish, see my buddy Dave. So I called up my wife. I said, Dory, I'm in Odd Train. She came and got me. I spent the night at home, went back the next day, and I thought, well, I'm going to call the newspaper, or the TV and newspaper, tell them I'm just completing this trip around Lake Superior. So I thought, I was kind of like the tortoise and the hare. I thought, oh crap, I only got from Odd Train to Munising. So I started out late. I got caught in some wind and that. I barely made it back in time for, I told them I'd be back at 6. So that's pretty much the close of the trip.
Wow. Cool.
So it was way better than working.